3 years ago, my partner and I bought our very first home together. It wasn't anything special, just a modest house in a quiet neighborhood, but we loved it. Our neighbors were friendly, the streets were peaceful, and for the first time in my life, I felt settled. Life felt safe. Too safe, maybe. About 18 months later, our neighbors decided to sell their house. Their home was bigger than ours and had everything we wished for: a driveway, a garage, even a bathtub. When the opportunity came up, we took it immediately. We bought their house and put our old one, right next door, up for sale. After reading through letters from potential buyers, we chose a Polish couple. They always spoke English with us instead of Dutch, but that didn't seem unusual at the time. They asked polite questions about the property and the neighborhood, and we shared a few friendly conversations. Everything felt normal. Looking back now, that was the last time things felt normal. Before anything major happened, strange disturbances began. At random hours, sometimes around midnight, we would hear heavy banging or unbelievably loud music blasting through the walls. It wasn't constant, but it was frequent enough to make us uneasy. It felt like strangers were living just a few feet away. The first real warning sign came when the husband returned home with severe damage to both sides of his car. It looked like he had slammed into guardrails at high speed on both sides. When we asked what happened, he gave a strange explanation, saying he hit a concrete pole on one side and a trailer turning too wide on the other. We nodded and accepted it, even though it didn't make sense. Then one evening around 6 o'clock, he called us in complete panic. He said people were outside his house turning the security cameras away. He begged us to look outside and call the police. When we checked, we saw 2 men trying to break into his house. We called the police immediately, but it took about 20 minutes for them to arrive. By then, the burglars were already gone. A few minutes later, the neighbor's wife sped into the street, parked hurriedly, and ran inside to check on her little French bulldog and speak with the officers. Later that evening, while walking my dog, I noticed something strange. The husband parked his car 3 streets away and walked back home on foot. At the time, I ignored the thought. Later, we checked the doorbell footage. Before the break-in, the burglars stood outside calmly discussing which house to target, speaking Polish. Nothing was stolen, no one was caught. I told the police it felt staged. They never contacted me again. About a week later, I was at a housewarming party when my partner texted me. The music next door is insanely loud again. A few minutes later, he called me. This time, his voice sounded different, terrified. My neighbor's car had just driven straight through our front garden and crashed into his own front door. 2 men were loading expensive electronics into the car: TVs, professional speakers, and other equipment. My partner recognized them immediately. They were the same men from before. This time, the police arrived in only 7 minutes. They caught the men while they were still loading the car. When asked for identification, they claimed they had none. Then things got surreal. The driver looked directly at the officer and claimed he was our neighbor, using our neighbor's real name. But something didn't add up. In 9 months, our neighbor had never spoken a single word of Dutch. This man spoke fluent Dutch with a heavy Polish accent. When they realized the lie wouldn't work, they sped off. A violent chase followed through our quiet neighborhood until police finally surrounded the car and arrested them. But my partner still heard movement inside the neighbor's house. Police went back inside and dragged out a 3rd man. While we were inside our own home speaking with an officer about the damage to our property, the doorbell rang. When we turned around, it was the real neighbor. I barely recognized him. His face was swollen and covered in blood. One eye was completely shut. His mouth was torn open. His arm hung uselessly and was covered in what looked like stab wounds. He looked feral, broken, dangerous. The police officer tried to help him, but he refused to cooperate or file a report. Without a statement, the officer couldn't do anything. Later that night, he rang our doorbell again. He was shaking. He confessed he had cheated on his wife and claimed she had sent people to kill him. He begged to stay the night. We refused. We were too scared to get involved. Instead, my partner drove him to the hospital. We dropped him off around 10:30 p.m. and told him we would stay somewhere else for the night. But we didn't. We went home and locked every door. Around 1 a.m., our dog started growling, a deep, warning growl, the kind he only makes when someone is outside. We checked the camera. It was him, standing on our porch, ringing the bell over and over. We sat in silence, watching the screen. Eventually, a car turned onto the street. The neighbor panicked. He jumped off the porch and hid behind our cars in the driveway. Seeing that broken man crouching in the darkness behind our own vehicles was one of the most disturbing moments of my life. The car stopped. His wife stepped out. She walked toward the house. Then she saw him. We held our breath. She walked closer. Under the yellow streetlight, she began crying, deep, haunting sobs that echoed through the empty street. He said nothing. She kept asking questions. Eventually, they got into the car and drove away. We didn't see them for 3 days. Eventually, the wife returned alone. She found the dog inside and told us she didn't think she would ever see her husband again. I still don't know the truth. Drugs, debt, violence, maybe all three. But I've learned one thing. Some stories are better left unknown.
This began in 2017 when my family moved into a split-level house in the suburbs of Montreal. I was 15 years old. My bedroom sat between the main floor and the basement at ground level. One wall connected to the garage. The other had a large window facing the backyard. The blinds had missing panels, leaving narrow gaps where you could see outside even when they were closed. My closet had mirrored sliding doors. From my bed, I could always see the window reflected in the mirror. About a year after moving in, I started noticing things. Late at night while watching YouTube, I would hear movement outside my window, sometimes footsteps, sometimes shuffling, sometimes breathing. Whenever I paused my videos, the sounds stopped. Whenever I resumed them, the sounds returned. When I looked directly at the window, I saw nothing. One night, I saw movement in the mirror reflection. I woke my parents. My dad searched outside. Nothing. The camera showed nothing. He told me to stop watching scary movies, so I tried to ignore it, but the sounds kept coming back. Every few weeks, always late at night. Sometimes I heard breathing, sometimes footsteps. I stopped looking at the window completely. Part of me was afraid of proving it was real. One night, I looked into the mirror. I saw a human silhouette. Again, my dad found nothing. Again, I believed him. Then, in December 2021, there was a massive windstorm. Around 11:30 p.m., I went to get water and saw my parents sitting awake, looking tense. Then, police lights flashed outside. They sent me to my room. 2 minutes later, they called me back. My dad had gone into the backyard earlier. He saw a man standing outside my window, staring in. When my dad yelled, the man jumped the fence and disappeared. Everything I feared was real. The police couldn't do much, but something still bothers me. When my parents warned the back neighbor, she threatened to call the police on them. Why? Was the man living there? Had she seen him before? Or was he just watching me? Even now, those questions haunt me. I switched rooms. Mine faces the street now, but I still can't look at backyard windows the same way. What scares me most is how long he was there without anyone knowing.
I was 15 when this happened. We moved from an apartment in Alberta into a cheap house nearby because my mom was expecting my little sister. My dad renovated the basement so I could have a bedroom there. For months, everything felt normal. Then one night, we came home and the front door was wide open. Nothing was stolen, but things had been moved. After that, I started hearing noises in the walls and beneath the basement floor. I told myself it was just pipes. Then, one night at 2 a.m., while playing my Nintendo DS under the covers, I heard laughter coming from the wall beside my bed. I froze. Eventually, I convinced myself I imagined it. The noises continued. Then, one night while my parents were out, I heard footsteps through the baby monitor. Heavy footsteps. My sister started crying. Then I heard a faint shushing sound. Then a crash. I grabbed my dad's rifle, unloaded and locked, and went downstairs. No one was there. The baby monitor was knocked over. I grabbed my sister and ran upstairs. Police searched and found nothing. Then my dad asked them to check behind my bookshelf. It opened like a door. Inside was a hidden space with pipes. On the floor were food wrappers, a missing cup, lotion, a switchblade, and a half-eaten apple. Someone had been living inside our house. Police believed he escaped through the basement window. Days later, I searched the space myself. I found a tiny hole in the wall. It pointed directly at my bed. Someone had been watching me for months, maybe longer. I'm an adult now living with my boyfriend. My parents still live there, and even today, I wonder if he ever came back.